We have a number of distinguished speakers, ministers around the table, and also two experts of the subject, Mr. Tom Phillips and Nigel Hickson. And so I will start maybe giving the floor to each of the ministers, and then to the experts. I would like to have a very short introduction from every one of you so that we can save as much time as possible for the interactive discussion. So before I do that, I would like to say a few words on this issue, in addition to the fact that it is important. Clearly, the transition to digital television is something unavoidable for many countries. A target date for switching off analog transmission has been set up by the Geneva 06 agreement. For other countries, I think everybody realized that there is an indication of the urgency to complete analog switch off as quickly as possible. The initial reasons are obviously that the transition to digital is going to have major economic consequences, in the sense that the deployment and the cost of the networks compared to analog will be much smaller, and also will enable many more programs to be broadcast. The other compelling reason to do this change is that it will improve the efficiency of use of spectrum and enable the countries who have made this transition to successfully make available a large amount of spectrum in the part of the spectrum which provides definite advantages compared to other frequencies, in that it allows the deployment of mobile networks at a very smaller cost than in higher frequencies. So for all these reasons, the transition to digital TV broadcasting is an important thing to achieve as soon as possible. At the same time, as we probably will highlight that during the discussion, this transition is not something which has only which involve only national decisions, but also which requires a lot of interactions with neighboring countries, a lot of coordination and harmonization efforts to make sure that this transition happens smoothly. So with these introductory words, I would like to open the floor to distinguished ministers, and maybe go around the table, starting on my left hand, giving the floor to Mr. Augusto Espin, who is the Vice Minister for Telecommunication of Ecuador. Mr. Espin.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to add a few words. I think what you said is important for everyone. For us, the first thing is using the spectrum in a more efficient way. Across our country, many analog systems are being used, including for point-to-point links, and for that reason, not only for deployment of the I would say last mile or the broadcast part, but also to improve the efficiency in point-to-point links. It's important for us to go to digital TV. That will somehow force the operators, the providers, to move to digital links and use more efficiently the spectrum, even in those bands. Also, it's very important for us to get better coverage and get more efficiency in how we do the coverage in the cities of the country. And we think that the digital TV can be used also as a training tool, as a content delivery tool that will improve the digital divide. And beyond that, of course, we want to recover the whole 700 megahertz band for deployment of broadband services. We want to keep the television free and open for all citizens, so that's one of the reasons why we want to go there, to the digital TV. Plus, of course, using a natural resource as a spectrum in an efficient way. Now we are working together in a public-private partnership, and we created a committee to drive this change to digital TV in the country. What we are doing is the public sector is working together with the private to figure out what is the better ways to go in several aspects of this migration, including technical, economic, content. I think that those are the most important things. We have to, the challenges there. And the public sector is looking for credit. We're trying to arrange some credit for the private sector so they can afford the change, the migration. And private sector is trying to improve ways to, how they will use this new technology, how they will deliver new content. And even, I think they need to create new business models. It would be very interesting to see, digital TV in places where, like small cities, where they can share a single transmitter between several content providers in a multiplex. So that's one of our guesses there, that it's going to happen especially in small towns. And at the end, how will the digital dividend spectrum be shared? The thing is, we think that the most important thing to do with that, digital dividend spectrum is using for 4G networks. That's our goal, maybe LTE. And the thing is using that spectrum to improve high-speed internet access across the country. Right now, we have availability of the 700 band, especially out of the largest towns in the largest cities in the country. But still, we need to recover the 700 band from the digital dividend to have the full 700 megahertz band. For now, we are planning to do the analog shutdown to 2016 for the 3 major cities in the country, which maybe are 60% of the population. And we think harmonization is very important, and one of the goals is to work together with the countries around Ecuador, with the neighboring countries and the region, and try to harmonize the use of the 700 band. I think that's important for many reasons. You mentioned several of those, but for us, economies of scale, or achieving economies of scale, is very important to get real good prices for devices if you want to access high-speed internet. And on the other hand, it would be nice to have a harmonized band between countries, because we could do things like roaming or such kind of things to cover the borders of the country. So, well, that's basically, what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like now to give the floor to Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Dear ministers, dear Francois, I am very delighted to be here on this panel. It is very important for us. Poland is in the process of digitalization, and I can tell you a few words about it. According to the Geneva 2006 plan, Poland accounted for 7 countrywide multiplexes. The problem of transmission from analog to digital broadcasting in Poland concerns the public broadcasters with 3 countrywide TV and 4 countrywide private broadcasters. According to the governmental strategy, 2 multiplexers are using to reconstruct analog offered. Public TV got 1 multiplex and 4 private broadcasters got 1 multiplex to share. With it means that beyond the current 1 channel, they still have plus for the new one. It is the benefit for the reconstruction analog. We thought that the problem will be solved by the regulators by using administrative decision. However, after several years of discussion, of course, with broadcaster, I have come to the conclusion that the legislative act, however, is necessary. And in June this year, Polish Parliament has passed the Digital Terrestrial Television Act. All broadcasters are obliged to stop analog broadcasting in Poland until July 2013. Compression standard adopted in Poland, it is MPEG 4. And what is the interesting about the subsidiary for the people, we decided to not regulate the financial subsidiary of decoders for citizens. In this regard, we would like to, in the first place, to start a market mechanism, but the law provides an obligation for the minister to carry on out to study on the degree of preference of householders receiving digital terrestrial TV. The results of these studies may eventually lead to the government's decision to prepare and appropriate governmental subsidizing program. Very important in the process, in this process, is the information for the citizens. Information what is happened, what they should do. Before the DVB-T Act came into the force, the Ministry of Infrastructure made efforts to raise awareness in the society regarding the implementation of digital terrestrial TV. Since mid-July, a commercial information campaign about digital television has been aired by all broadcasters. The Act itself obliged broadcasters to inform viewers about digital switchover. So in this matter, short commercials are being aired. The aim is to draw public attention to the technology changes in the reception of television. In the future, longer programs will be aired, and they will present more detailed information regarding the digital television. The information will include, among others, the method of adjusting to the television sets for receiving digital program. Furthermore, in October 2010, the Ministry of Infrastructure has launched the website about the digitalization. On this website, users can find, among others, basic information about on digitalization and ways of adjusting TV sets. Also, a helpline was set up where users can receive individual assistance regarding the adjustments of TV sets. Users can also receive support by sending emails. According to the DVB-T Act, and entrepreneurs selling digital devices are also obliged to provide specific information for the customers in the shops. Of course, why we do this process, and we of course need the frequency. We need more frequency, and if we go to the digital dividend, I want to say that in Poland, the public TV and commercial broadcasters got a whole multiplexes. In total, beyond these 2 multiplexes, we also plan to spend 3 additional on TV and 2 for electronic communication services, including broadband and including mobile TV. Of course, it is at this moment. Of course, after the analog switch off in 2013, changes in the plan might be necessary. The most important, I think, in digital dividend is the harmonization, because the frequency are very specific. We should use them very efficiently. And in Europe, we prepare first radio spectrum policy program about the harmonization at 800 megahertz. I think it is very good first document in European Union. About 800 megahertz. I think that Polish presidency will finish work on this document. And I won't say the last week in Warsaw, we had very, I hope, interesting conference about the future electronic communication in Europe, and we adopted the declaration, political declaration about the harmonization spectrum. 36 countries adopt this document, and we put in this document that everybody want and agree that harmonization of spectrum is needed, and I think that it help us, this declaration can help us during the WRC 2012, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Guy. I would like now to give the floor to the Minister from South Africa.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's let me first of all express the congratulations of my President, President Zuma, to the Assembly here in the celebration of the 40th year anniversary of the ITU, and also to express our appreciation to the excellency and the excellent leadership of Hamadoun Touré, the Secretary General, in being able to give us such a wonderful opportunity to discover the most updated knowledge about developments in the ITU world today. And it's a pleasure indeed to be invited to participate in this roundtable discussion and to share some of the experiences that South Africa has in the Southern African and African region on the question of the digital migration and the transition from analog to digital. Firstly, colleagues, let me just say that 95% of South Africans are reliant on terrestrial transmission for the reception of television signals in South Africa. There is no cable television in South Africa. For us, one of the most important interrogations in the process that we are implementing right now is to establish precisely how we could expand the social and economic benefits that arise from the digital dividends that we see in the transition from analog to digital. We are challenged by some important elements that make up our contextual reality. The first one is that we are addressing the manner in which we should build a communications infrastructure throughout our country. We receive a legacy of infrastructure development in the country in which communications infrastructure are probably more primarily centered around the urban cities, with the vast numbers of rural people and rural areas cut out from receiving the most high-level telecommunications infrastructure. So the major developmental challenge for us is to ensure that we're able to take broadband and we're able to take the reception of television signals to every corner of South Africa. So closing this digital divide between rural and urban areas constitutes quite a strategic priority for us. The second one is that we also inherit a kind of economic structure in our country which has an historical legacy of advantage and disadvantage, in that a lot of the economic privileged accesses have been restricted to one part of the population, and a large measure of the people are out. So we have telecommunications companies that are reflective of this historical advantage. So for us, in trying to build the notion of a developmental state in South Africa that must intervene and not purely rely on what the market says, we have to ensure that the state comes in to make adjustments which the market is failing to do. That's another important economic imperative that drives our approach on how we will utilize the digital dividend. From the point of view of South Africa's political understanding and its rich historical history, the spectrum is considered to be the natural asset of the people. And as such, we take an approach that the spectrum must be used in a manner in which it is deployed for the best benefit of the people as a whole. And so if we can use the spectrum in a way in which we can correct market deficiencies in our country, in the economy, then that's the kind of approach we are looking at. So for example, in the allocation of the spectrum, there clearly is a massive demand of established telcos in the urban centers to enter into a competitive bidding process and get it. So the company that puts in the best bucks will get the best dividends. And then they talk about, obviously building much more super highways from 3G to 4G to LTE and so on. So, and that's the fight for the subscriber base. And we're not so sure whether that approach would entirely meet our social, economic, and developmental objectives. So we're discovering an approach which may take the spectrum and divide them into two sorts. One is to allow some part of the spectrum to be used in a competitive bidding process for those who want to build superhighways and allow them to do that. And another part of the spectrum will be set aside for new entries into the market, new companies that could be indigenously based and who may not have had the historical advantage of privilege before to have access to the spectrum, so that in that way we expand the participants in the economy. Now, we're excited about this transition. We've committed, the government's committed itself to ensuring that the transition will happen by December 2013. We're very much part and parcel of the Southern African commitment to accelerate the implementation of this digital migration by December 2013. There are 22 countries in the Southern African region that have made a commitment to the utilization of the DVB-T2 standard. And in a recent meeting in Angola, where we were assessing the readiness of the African region to implement this, we've decided to establish a special task force that will give support to African countries that in the SADC region that are struggling at the moment to make the kind of process happen speedily. So a meeting is being convened in South Africa before the end of the year to accelerate this particular transition. As I've said, South Africa has adopted the DVB-T2 standard to be used. We consider this to be one of the most efficient and robust transmission standards. We've also taken an important decision to manufacture the converter boxes, the set-top boxes, and integrate digital TVs for internal consumption and for export purposes. We have taken a principal decision that this migration process must be used as an instrument to revitalize or rejuvenate the electronics industry in our country. So we have taken a policy decision that the boxes that will be used have got to be locally manufactured. The other important decision that relates to this choice of the kind of converter boxes and its capabilities is the question of whether we should have encryption on the content or encryption on the boxes. And right now, the current discussions in Parliament and in our policy thinking tanks is that we are likely to be guided by a process which says that we reduce the cost of these boxes to as low as possible so that we enable more of our people who we think ought to be subsidized by the state on these boxes to get them virtually without having to put up any money at it. At the moment, the support scheme in South Africa is suggesting that government would put in about 350 rands of the estimated cost of 700 rands of the set-top box. So that means that the state is making a financial commitment to this transition in excess of billions of rands. And if we can utilize that in a way in which we ensure that the majority of South Africa, and particularly those that are indigent and deserving, get these boxes free of cost, that would be the direction we would take. Our transmission infrastructure, capable of providing DTT coverage to 70% of the South African population, will be in place by March 2012. And we expect that this will allow the country to switch on the digital signal in April 2012 and complete the switching off of analog by December 2013. One of the most enormous challenges that we face is to be able to have an implementation plan in that very short space of time that would enable these outcomes to be achieved. And our thinking is that we may have to divide our country into regions and use the experience that other countries have had of switching off the analog signal in phases and switching on the digital signal in phases until we are able to cover the entire country. The other problem that we face is to be able to ensure that there is a convincing information campaign and marketing strategy to ensure that our people understand the benefits of this transition and that they are also active participants in seeking the converter boxes that will be produced by manufacturers which are local and distributed by agencies that are local and informed by cadres on the ground that we identify as cadres that would take the message of the benefits, social and economic benefits of digital transition to our people. And we put our faith in ourselves and in God that we shall achieve this by 2013. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I'm facing a dilemma because we have many ministers around the table, but not entirely those who were supposed to be there. So maybe I could continue to go around the table and ask if the Minister of Nigeria, Mrs. Johnson, would like to say a few words.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On the issue of digital migration, we have set a very aggressive deadline for ourselves of December 2012 for the complete migration. However, I will say that this has been or will be constrained by some delays we've had in both the preparation of the white paper to support government's position and also the approval of that white paper. But let me just give some highlights of what the government's position has been. One of the reasons that we're accelerating the migration is because we also have very ambitious plans for the rollout of broadband infrastructure across the country. And clearly the frequency that is required for wireless broadband is what is being used for the analog broadcasting now. So we have, within the Frequency Management Council, we've commenced the process of migrating the broadcasters from that spectrum onto other spectrum so we can begin to use the digital dividend spectrum. Probably about 95 or probably almost 100% of the country is reliant on terrestrial transmission. So one of the issues that we have is the digital set-top boxes that we need to provide for almost every single home. We are, given the past experiences on subsidies, we are reluctant to provide subsidies. However, we do realize that we may need to do some things to make the cost of those set-top boxes affordable to every Nigerian. One of the things that we're looking at is the local assembly of those set-top boxes. So again, we are speaking to a number of manufacturers of those set-top boxes to set up in Nigeria and provide incentives for them to produce those set-top boxes at the lowest cost possible. In terms of how we will use the spectrum, that is still it's still under discussion how the spectrum that is being released will be allocated. But I believe that probably before the end of the year, working with both the regulator and the NFMC, we will have a position on how we'll use the spectrum. I think that's all I have to say. I know that we don't have much time, but that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe I could give the floor now to the Deputy Minister from Zambia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Greetings to everyone. My name is Mwanyam Senge, Deputy Minister, Transport, Works and Supply and Communication from Zambia. First and foremost, I want to mention here that as a country, we've just come out of an election which has ushered in a new government, an opposition party taking over. And indeed, without wasting much of our time, we looked at the programs that we feel are very, very important in terms of governance to the country. And of course, one of the programs that we felt is very, very important indeed is the ICT and the e-governance. And we found it very, very important that despite forming government only a few months ago, it was indeed very important for us to be part and parcel of what is taking place today here in Geneva. I would want to mention here that the digital migration is very, very important. And as a country as Zambia, we have not sat back. We indeed have taken serious steps to migrate. And we've actually looked at lower frequencies which are currently being used for analog television transmission, which have got wider coverage. For a country like Zambia, which has a relatively large area and small population, which is skewed to the urban areas, the low population density in rural areas provides a challenge when it comes to network coverage, as too many towers are used to provide access to few people, to mobile telephone and broadband coverage. This is not economically viable. And if we redirect some of the lower frequencies to mobile coverage, then we'll have taken a positive step towards coming up with a solution. Currently, trials are ongoing in the major two cities using SADC adopted standards, and that is the DVB T2. And migration date under the SADC agreement, which is 31st December 2013. I'd want to mention here that we as a country are committed to migrate by that date. The possibility of multiple channel transmission brings about an opportunity for content production, which means the creation of jobs for the youths in the country. And this is a major program for our new government. A vigorous awareness campaign is planned to highlight the benefits of migration to digital terrestrial television. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I give the floor to the Minister from Gabon now?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, je voudrais avant toute chose vous exprimer ma profonde gratitude surtout en direction du secrétaire général de l'Union internationale des télécommunications, pour l'honneur fait à la délégation du Gabon, tel que nous l'avons remarqué hier, qui a été donc au HUB par la présence du chef de l'État, son Excellence Ali Bongo Ondimba, et qui nous a donc gratifié d'un discours cadre. Et c'est dans le cadre de ce discours que je me propose donc de participer à cette table ronde qui a pour thème la migration de la télévision analogique vers la télévision numérique. Monsieur le Président, la télévision numérique terrestre a été instituée par des actes au cours d'une conférence de l'UIT dans cette même ville de Genève en 2006. Cette conférence a permis de fixer les bases de la TNT pour certaines régions auxquelles appartient le Gabon, mon pays. Une planification qui a donc permis de disposer d'une bande de fréquences qui pourrait être utilisée pour d'autres services et télécommunications. Je crois que cette bande a reçu la dénomination de Dividend numérique.
So that's why we have technology, so that it fails us when we need it most. I think this was probably a good illustration for the process that we all are dealing with right now, that we will all have these unexpected failures and occurrences in a process that touches upon every household in the country, more or less. And it shows how complex this process is, especially in countries where TV is the key source of information, which I would say is the majority of our countries. An implication that we have in Serbia is that the date that we planned for the switch-off, April 2012, will be just immediately before the elections. So clearly we'll have to postpone that, as having the switch-off 2 weeks before the elections will not be a good idea on so many levels. In our country, a little bit over half of the population receives terrestrial TV, and the better off, more affluent, more educated urban dwellers, they usually watch cable TV. So what we have to deal with is the rural population, which in our country would be aging, less affluent and less educated population. So this puts another layer of difficulty into this complex process. And something that I wanted to suggest, and maybe Francois will blame me for it, I think it would be very useful for all of us if we could share maybe just the PR materials as well, the ways we will inform our citizens as to what is it that they should do. I know that's a challenge for every country, and just seeing how other countries are approaching it will be helpful to everyone, and I don't think that's too resource intensive. We have planned a PR campaign, and of course it has to go across all the platforms, so obviously the TV, because the networks also want the viewers to switch without problems, so they don't lose viewers. But then we would have to include all traditional media, the print media, the leaflets, but also direct contact with our citizens. And like some other countries, we also plan to help, especially the households that already have some kind of social support, to obtain the set-top boxes, but also to be able to mount them and to switch them in appropriately, so we don't have people who are left without this, oftentimes the only window into the outer world. So we will be pushing back our date. In the meantime, we've had also another amendment to our strategy. When we were putting together the strategy initially, we thought, because our spectrum is really cramped, that we would not be able to have any phased approach, and we would have to do the, as they say in the US, cold turkey approach, so switch off, switch on. However, in the meantime, due to the global crisis, some of the TV stations went bankrupt, so we've got some free space in the spectrum. And in this case, the global crisis had some positive impacts on this process, at least. So now we will have the phased approach, and it will be a little bit easier for us. This winter, we will start the pilot digital broadcasting, and we will see how that goes. We hope by the end of 2012, we will be able to switch off the analog signal and switch on the digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So may I give the floor again to the Honorable Minister from Gabon to finish his presentation. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, vous n'avez pas eu le pouvoir d'arrêter le temps pour que je reprenne là où nous avons arrêté. Et quoi qu'il en soit, Monsieur le Président, je me permets donc de continuer cet exposé. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues, je voulais insister sur le fait que le Gabon, mon pays, a bien capitalisé, n'est-ce pas, les atouts de la TNT à partir de la conférence que j'ai citée tout à l'heure. Et j'étais en train de me poser la question de savoir pourquoi la TNT, et nous avons tous retenu l'intérêt de la TNT. Qu'est-ce que nous avons fait concrètement à ce propos au niveau du Gabon? D'abord, la mise en place d'un cadre institutionnel. Un cadre institutionnel autour de 3 textes qui sont d'importance capitale. Celui qui est à la base du fonctionnement du ministère de la Communication, de la Poste et de l'Économie numérique. Un autre texte, toujours dans ce cadre institutionnel, qui crée une agence nationale des infrastructures numériques et des fréquences. Et c'est donc cette agence qui est chargée de l'élaboration et de l'exécution des projets d'infrastructures numériques. Un autre texte, toujours dans ce cadre institutionnel à ne pas négliger, c'est la création d'un établissement public appelé Télédiffusion du Gabon. Télédiffusion du Gabon qui précise donc les modalités d'installation et le fonctionnement des équipements de transmission et de diffusion des programmes de radiodiffusion et de télédiffusion. Monsieur le Président, c'est peut-être ma voix qui est trop percutante. Alors je vais essayer de diminuer la tonalité de ma voix. À la suite donc de la mise en place de ce cadre institutionnel, le pays a installé une programmation pour l'installation de la TNT. Et tout ceci, donc, conformément aux actes de la conférence mondiale des radiocommunications de Genève de 2006, la télévision analogique devra cesser d'émettre en 2015 dans les bandes 4 et 5 et en 2020 dans la bande 3. C'est dans ce cadre donc qu'une programmation triennale pour la couverture du territoire national en TNT a été élaborée pour compter de 2011. Ce programme prévoit la livraison du premier lot d'équipement, au deuxième trimestre 2012. Les émissions en analogique permettront pendant la transition à ceux qui ne seront pas encore équipés de téléviseurs TNT ou des adaptateurs irrelatifs à continuer de recevoir des programmes TV. Ces dispositions seront prises pour faciliter l'acquisition des adaptateurs TNT à des prix abordables pour les populations à revenus modestes. Pour vous parler donc de la bande, de la dividende numérique, suite à la mise en œuvre de la TNT, la bande de fréquence 790-862 MHz sera libérée et reviendra au service de téléphonie mobile, alors que la bande 470-862 MHz reviendra à des services à valeur ajoutée, ceci donc après l'année 2015. Le Gabon est un pays forestier. Il disposera des bandes de fréquences plus adaptées à la propagation en milieu tropical. Je terminerai mon propos en rappelant ce qui a été exposé de façon magistrale hier par le président de la République, à savoir la mise en œuvre au niveau du Gabon du plan numérique. Le plan numérique n'est rien d'autre que notre cyberstratégie nationale. Et ce plan a été conçu pour une durée de 3 ans. Donc, dire la préoccupation qui est la nôtre quant à la place du numérique dans le développement économique de notre pays, le Gabon. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
So, Honourable Ministers, distinguished guests, Francois, thank you very much indeed for inviting me and allowing me to share my thoughts with you as part of this event. The GSMA represents the global mobile industry, as hopefully you know, and we hosted a small breakfast meeting, and I think many of you perhaps had a chance to attend this morning, at which we presented some latest forecasts for data traffic growth over the world's mobile networks. And the figures we came up with were quite, I think, profound. The current rate of growth is in excess of 40% compound per annum in terms of data volume, driven by smartphone use, by embedded mobile within laptops and dongles and so on. And if we're going to keep pace in terms of being able to supply connectivity to people who are demanding and downloading the kinds of data volumes that we've seen, we've got to release more spectrum quickly. Digital dividend is absolutely vital for that, as the Minister from South Africa, I think, mentioned in terms of rural coverage, digital divide. It's absolutely the core band for that, and very, very important. The other thing that's very important is the harmonisation across countries, and obviously around the table here, a lot are represented. I think, Minister from Ecuador, you started by saying the harmonisation was key. Scale economies and the GSM effect, as we call it in the industry, is absolutely crucial to get the costs down, as well as the roaming, which you mentioned as well, obviously very important. And the ITU plays a fundamental, profound role at the centre of the industry with government in ensuring that, as far as possible, we are harmonised. Just a data point for you. We believe we need markets typically over 100 million units in size in order to start kicking in the scale economies for handsets and devices, and that if we get above that level, we can take 10% off the cost of materials in a handset. So for every 100 million, 10% off in terms of the cost of the materials going into a handset is a typical figure. So it really does make a big impact in terms of affordability for citizens if we can get countries to coordinate their band planning. Certainty and timelines and a frequency plan for a country as a whole, not just the digital dividend, but 2.6 band and others as well, is absolutely crucial for investment. These are long-term decisions that people are making in terms of putting hundreds of millions of dollars into infrastructure and networks. And the more certainty that can be created in a plan that spans perhaps 10 or 15 years, the better the investment case can be, and I think the quicker that we'll see networks be rolled out and new capacity come online. And I think, well, it's obviously a very good opportunity for operators. It's also, I think, proven as a very good opportunity for all citizens as well. We've done a couple of studies recently just to pull out those. South Africa, I think we saw a 1.8% GDP increase from the release of digital dividend and 2.5 gigahertz bands by 2015, and in the same timescale in Nigeria, I think our report suggested there might be a 1.2% increase in GDP. So quite significant numbers at a national scale. And I would emphasize as well that we put a lot of effort into promoting e-government. I think the Minister from Iran mentioned e-government, e-education, e-health through mobile broadband. I think is really going to take off and be a profound part of why this market will continue to grow at the 40+% that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Chairman, Honourable Ministers and guests. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me along. I'm not a minister and I'm not an expert, I'm a civil servant, but we all have our cross to bear. First of all, I think it's important to just reflect on what Tom has said in terms of economic growth, because certainly for the UK and I think Europe as well, the transition from analog to digital broadcasting, and particularly the availability of the critical spectrum, the digital dividend spectrum that has enabled to be used for mobile broadband, has been a significant factor in the growth of GDP. It certainly helped our economy, and it's certainly, I think, helping the global economy. We would certainly like to thank the ITU as well for their critical work in this area, not just their traditional role in allocating frequencies, of course, and in relation to that, we wish you all the best for the World Radio Conference early next year, but also for the great work that the ITU do in harmonising, in bringing people together, in giving advice and capacity building, and of course this event today. I just want to say two very brief things on the transition from analog to digital, and then just say something on auctions. First of all, on the transition from analog to digital, every country has to go their own way. We all have our own particular issues. The UK is an island, well, just about still, you know, we have this funny tunnel under the sea, but we're just about an island. And you might think it should be easy in an island to go from analog to digital. We certainly don't have the issues that Poland and other countries have. But it wasn't easy because the UK had very fragmented terrestrial broadcasting with a lot of local television and a lot of historical analog towers. So the switchover process was technically difficult and is still in transition. Although 98% of our households, or 99% I think now, have the ability to receive digital TV, the transition is still taking place, and indeed won't be completed until after some of our friends around the table here. We're not going to complete our transition in Northern Ireland until about October in 2012 next year. But that transition, I think, is very important. I wanted to mention one aspect of that transition that really has been significant for us. When the government set out this program of transition, we all, like countries around the table here, we all had this political fear. Ministers were very concerned. They recognized the economic benefit. They recognized the social benefit in going to a multi-channel environment. But they also were concerned with elections, and they were concerned that it would be a disaster, that people would stop getting television. And if you take an Englishman away from his television, away from his sport on a Saturday night, then you are in real trouble as a government. But fortunately, the transition has gone very well. And it's gone well at a technical level, but it's gone well at a social level. And the main reason it's gone well is because of set-top boxes. Now, we can all talk about set-top boxes, and I'm not going to mention any standards or anything like that. But the crucial issue in the UK was the widespread availability of set-top boxes at a reasonable price. Yes, the government did step in and said they were willing to help people with the purchase of set-top boxes. We didn't subsidise the cost of set-top boxes, but we did have a help scheme so that if you were vulnerable, if you were old, if you were financially challenged, then you could get help buying a set-top boxes. But in fact, that help scheme was never used. Well, it was used, but only at the margins, because what happened, and this is the message I want to sort of leave with you, what really happened in the UK in terms of the success of digital television is that everyone helped each other. The set-top boxes sold for 15, 20, 25 pounds, 30 or $40 in the shops. People bought the set-top boxes, they helped their neighbours with them, charities helped out old people. There was a community effort to help people with set-top boxes, and that's what really helped the transition. Moving on to the spectrum, of course, we have to use this digital dividend that we've been given. And the UK will be auctioning 72 megahertz at 800 of the 800 megahertz spectrum, and 190 megahertz of the 2.6 gigahertz spectrum for Wi-Fi in next year, during 2012. And this, of course, is very important spectrum, as Tom has said, in terms of mobile broadband. Looking to the future, what is the future? The ITU, of course, will be considering what the agenda of the next World Radio Conference will be at the next World Radio Conference. It's great, isn't it, when you have a conference, and a lot of the conference is deciding what's the agenda of the next conference. I quite like that. But of course, in terms of spectrum planning, it's very important, and there are important decisions to be taken about whether we have another digital dividend as such, and what spectrum we might find next for mobile broadband. But I'm sure that with the help of the ITU, we'll be guided in that path. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. It's okay. Okay, so we have at least one more microphone which is working. At this point, unfortunately, we don't have much time for the interactive part of this panel, but I would like to give the chance to the people in the room if they want to raise any question at this point. Yes, you have the floor, madam.
I have two very short questions. One is, I was very interested in the comment from South Africa that they are going to manufacture their own set-top boxes. And I wondered if any other countries are considering that, or some industrial strategy. And the second, many speakers mentioned broadband in general and its potential as part of this excuse me, digitization strategy. And I'd like to know if any are using any of their universal service funds as part of a strategy coordinated with this digitization, especially for extending broadband. Thank you.
It seems that there is quite a convergence of opinion here that we should look at how we could utilize the manufacturing opportunity on the set-top boxes to expand that capacity in our own countries, and that this would certainly be valuable for the stimulation of our own economic developments. And I think a number of country ministers have raised the question about local manufacturing or local assembly. Clearly, if you look at the international and global chain in which the set-top boxes are dependent on, there are only few manufacturers in the world that supply the components to them. So whichever way you go with respect to the so-called knockdown manufacturing and assembly of the set-top boxes, you're going to stand in the queue with a few people supplying the components, and you left to that part of the chain where you would really focus on localized assembly operations. So that is the opportunity. But of course, the other thing that we thought was important to look at is to look at the whole value chain, not just the set-top boxes, but the production of aerials and so on and so forth, and the cabling systems, and the training opportunity that this might offer for us to put new young unemployable or unemployed young people into the business of installation and support services. So there is an opportunity that goes beyond just the assembly part of the set-top boxes. Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to ask why you skipped Lebanon, because mainly we consider that we will speak about we are representing the minister, and we will speak about the case in Lebanon. Meanwhile, now I would like to have to ask a question, and I think it is very important to start discussing this issue. Today there are different alternatives for digital TV broadcasting. which require fixed reception, such as satellite, cable, and etc. And at the same time, the mobile application and conversion in its way, and this requires more and more bandwidth. And this increase the value of this scarce resource due to the increase of the demand, taking into consideration that the valuable characteristic of the UHF frequencies, and that every country, most of the countries, are deploying their own infrastructure to cater the high request of the bandwidths. From the economic point of view, we would like to ask about the importance of maintaining this spectrum for broadcast services, or to release the spectrum to other services such as mobile, bearing in mind that convergence will carry all these services over the same device, and the broadcast service still to be, as a broadcast service, a fixed, independent from other. I have another question to Poland. They mentioned that they require, I wanted to know, they mentioned they require more spectrum. Is it for broadcast or for other service? And for South Africa, they mentioned that they don't have cable TV distribution. But what about other alternatives to cover the South Africa region, such as satellite, and taking into consideration and bearing in mind that in the future, for sure, they will have cable infrastructure that will offer broadband services, which has to include a broadcast service. Thank you.
In Poland, we give 5 multiplex for broadcasters and 2 multiplex for the electronic communication. One 800 megahertz for the broadband and one for mobile TV or another service.
So maybe I would like to sum up, because we seem to have exhausted our time. I think nobody here implied that the band identified by WRC07 should be used for anything else than mobile. Okay, so that's very clear. Second, I think a lot of speakers recognize the social value of the spectrum for using it for mobile, but also for broadcasting in reaching all the population and bridging the digital divide. What has been recognized also, and which I think is very important, is that the transition to digital TV has social implications and political implications, and therefore the government have to be very careful in organizing this transition in a way which does not disrupt the television service. And this also needs to be coupled with the need to discuss with the neighbors and ensure not only the harmonization for economies of scales, but also the resolution of cross-border interference issues, which in the case of broadcasting are very critical because they have the potential to disrupt the television service. But they are also critical in the case where you have a coexistence across the border between broadcasting and the mobile service, because then the towers used by the base stations, which are typically 40-meter high, will receive interference from broadcasting very far away. So this is a critical issue, which also is a reason why the problem of digital dividend allocation decision is different from previous mobile allocation decisions. It has a lot of implication on the day-to-day life of every citizens. And of course, coupled with these social implications are the possible use of financial funds to assist in doing this transition smoothly. And this is something which was mentioned by several ministers, and obviously the impression in general is that these funds have not been fully used, that if you carefully design your transition, people will be naturally inclined to buy the set-top boxes before waiting for the last minute, because it is interesting. Because if you have a nice, attractive television service in digital form, of course, people will actually take this service sooner than waiting the last minute for the analog switch off. So I hope I have covered all the points. Of course, the choice of the standard and the relationship with the prices of the set-top boxes is a critical decision to be taken by government. I think Mrs. Matic highlighted that this is a decision which may vary from one year to the other as the technology has evolved. And I would tend to agree with her that the latest technologies like DVB-T2 coupled with MPEG-4 offer the ultimate economies of spectrum possible, which is very, very important, and also the perspective that there won't be a lot of changes in the future because you have reached basically the maximum technology capability. I wanted to emphasize that, which was highlighted by several speakers, the need for harmonization at sub-regional level, and the need for interaction between neighboring countries. We are quite aware of this problem in the ITU, and both the Telecommunication Development Bureau and the Radio Communication Bureau have started to organize a number of workshops on this issue to make sure that this type of discussion is taking place. And we are certainly willing to help and assist the membership to implement and organize this transition to digital TV in the best possible way. So there will be many workshops. The next one in November will be organized in Honduras for Latin American countries. We also have a joint workshop in Nairobi at the end of this month. This will be a first step for other workshops to take place in the African region. We have also started that in the Asia Pacific and in Eastern Europe. So we really take this as a matter of priority, because not only it has social benefits, but also the potential for social difficulties, and all this has to be addressed very carefully. So you can count on the ITU to go with you on this issue. I would like to thank all the audience and all the ministers. I think the importance of the attendance also is a reflection of the importance of the subject. And certainly we'll hear a lot more about it, and I can feel also there is a need to, as much as possible, exchanges of experience as countries are facing and resolving the difficulties that we have been discussing today. So thank you very much for your attendance. Mr. Ghazal, you wanted the floor before we finish? Okay, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie. Je voulais simplement savoir si quelqu'un a mentionné le problème climatique concernant le passage rapide de l'analogique au numérique pour les émetteurs. Et comme vous le savez, la puissance sera divisée par 10. Et ceci est très très important de mentionner qu'il ne faut pas seulement penser aux boîtes noires à travers les satellites, mais c'est surtout de passer au numérique terrestriel en diminuant la puissance extraordinaire des émetteurs. Et je crois que c'est l'idée principale de passer de l'analogique au numérique. Je vous remercie, monsieur.